Today, let's take a look at Audio-Technica's very first full-size closed-back wooden headphone. So the Audio-Technica ATH-W10 VTG or Vintage is from 1996, and this was a very strong departure to what Audio-Technica was doing previously, which was mostly in the realm of lower-end consumer products. At least that was the more popular, famous products, and a lot of studio monitors. They did dabble in higher-end products like electrostats, but they were not as common. Anyway, let's get into it. The wooden cups from these headphones are made of cherry wood. They are not the most robust material. They're fragile and susceptible to scratches and dings, as these have suffered over the years. The text on the side of the headphones is painted, so be warned, don't try and clean those too hard or be aggressive, as that paint can wear off, as is demonstrated by the plug, which should in fact have the word vintage written on it, but no longer does over years of use. Years of use which is easily evidenced on the cable, which has suffered greatly at the hands of its previous owner, whoever that was. Of course, this was, I believe, one of the first Audio-Technica headphones with the 3D headband wing system, whatever it's called. 3D headband, 3D wing, something or other. Yeah, it looks like this was Audio-Technica's first headphone with this system, as far as I can tell anyway. For the details, I think most of the headband frame and the cup frame is all plastic. The wooden cups themselves are screwed through the baffle directly into the wood using woodworking screws. The cable enters from one side and I think it's hidden in one of these as it goes into the other. It's not actually using the metal of the headband as the conductor like they did in the 70s AKG headphones, but that gives an advantage where if your head is wider or thinner, narrower, you can always adjust the tension by bending the headband, which is always very useful. Unfortunately for me, the comfort of these headphones isn't great because, as you can see, while they do swivel in this direction, they do not swivel in the others. The way this headphone sits in your head is entirely based upon the flexing of this arch, the headband arch here. So I experience a bit of a pinch down here, which is quite irritating after a while. So the one very interesting thing about this headphone is that it's the world's first headphone with a 53mm dynamic driver. I don't know if you can see easily in this close-up, but underneath the diaphragm itself, inside the driver is a bit of fabric mesh which covers the back of the vent, the whole vent. Covers the front of the whole vent, actually. Back, front? Well, from this side, the front of the whole vent. Because inside the cups are two pieces of foam, which is tuning the headphone. And there's a series of vents. I don't know if we'll be able to get a closer look at those. Anyway, let's open it up and have a look. But before that, let's measure the active area of the driver. So, in this case, if we go from one side of the diaphragm to the other, it is about 4.46mm, maybe 45, no, about 46mm. So what they usually do when they're measuring drivers is they measure the driver housing from the entire diameter, which makes it a bit of a marketing lie, unfortunately, but that's how they all do it, or did it. I think they still do it these days. So let's take a look inside. Of course, the drivers are angled, so that helps with the way this headphone sounds. Angles the sound directly into your ear canals, your ear holes. More on that later. So the cups just pop off. You can see where the screws went directly into the wooden cups. You can see the felt gasket to make a perfect seal, and around there you can see this thicker piece of foam, which is likely a mechanical damping between the driver housing and the cup, and then you've got the acoustic damping, which I'm not going to touch because it is crumbling to all hell, And I'm not going to remove that to take a closer look at the driver. But what you can see is the baffle venting on the other side. So that's neat. While we're here, you can also see that right is labeled with red and left is labeled with blue. I'll show you that in a minute after putting this back on. There's no position where it clicks into place, so you just have to turn it over and make sure that the holes line up before you put the screws in. And because these screws are not mechanical, there's no point in reversing and looking for that biting point. It doesn't exist. So just be careful when you're doing it, when you're unscrewing it and when you're rescrewing it, that you don't over tighten, and your movements are very deliberate. Of course, these are the best replacement pads you can get for this particular headphone. I've forgotten exactly the model number, but I'll write it. I'll pin it in the description or something. When you get these pads, there's a slightly thicker part here, which goes to the back, and it's thinner at the front. So left cable's on the left side. Oh yeah, we'll look at that left side blue thing again. There we go. And the thick part goes at the back. So, before we move on to the sound, yeah, I actually don't mind the 3D system. It works a lot better than I expected. It's a lot more comfortable than I expected. There's a lot of surface area, and there's no chance of getting a hotspot from excess weight at the top of your head. And overall, because of the decent clamping, most of the weight is distributed as well by the almost excessive surface area of the pads. So yeah, generally speaking, how do they sound? Despite their larger size, the staging, it's more intimate, but it's also not quite inside your head. So it's not a big soundstage, but it's not a small soundstage. You get something, it's moderate in size. The treble is not fatiguing, but it has a slightly tizzy quality to the timbre, but it's also not distasteful. The mids are overall very well voiced, with a bias towards upper mid-range clarity, and the bass, it's a fine balance between being not too thumpy and soft, leaning maybe a little bit more towards thumpy, and is neither too thick or too dry. So overall, it's got a good balance of timbre and texture. On the whole, I would say the tone, it's leaning towards bassy warm, but it's not dark, because it does have good treble extension and definition. Definitely more spacious sounding than modern Denon and Fostex headphones, but nowhere near as wide and spacious as the JVC ATH-W10VTG. So yeah, one of the few Audio Technicas I've actually really quite enjoyed. Obviously, I can't enjoy it too much because of that pinching at the very bottom. Comfort is a big factor for me, and actually because I'm a bit of a soundstage junkie, I was wanting, I did feel like I wanted more staging, more soundstage, just a bigger sound, and I didn't get that with these. But overall, very musical, fun headphone, and if that sounds like something you might be looking for, that gets a soft recommendation. Very, very neat. Would recommend. Solid 5 out of 7. Anyway, take it easy, and I'll see you in the next one.